Lockport for the month of June. Please rise and join me for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have a roll call for quorum, please.
Here.
Here.
Not yet. Brent Portfolio. Absent.
Yes.
Present. So we do have four, so we do have a quorum. Mr. Bellotta and Mrs. Wold have advised us they're not going to be here this evening. Mr. Portfolio may be rushing in here any second, but we do have a quorum, so we can proceed. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 9th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Under discussion, they have us all listed as councilman and chairman and councilwoman and the different entries here. That should be revised to say commission members. Other than that, the minutes appear to be in order. A motion, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, and as corrected. Staff, the GG Temple.
Yes, as you recall, this did go to the commission once already at the March 14th meeting. You did discuss several of the requested actions. The public hearing on those items were closed. The only item that was left outstanding was the review and recommendation on the final development plan. Based on some of the comments that were discussed at that meeting, as previously discussed with you, the applicant has revised the plan. And because the plan package was coming in piecemeal, the final engineering plans revised were the last items we received. So the timing of that didn't allow us for the review the plans and be able to provide the applicant with time to make some additional changes. So we should be ready for July 11th.
Okay, staff is recommending that this be tabled. I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Oxley. Second from Mr. Likens. Roll call vote, please. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Motion carries. Matter is tabled to the July meeting. Let's move on to Griffin Incorporated for their consolidation.
Good evening, Chairman Maloney and members of the Commission. Greif Incorporated, an industrial packaging manufacturer, requests approval of a consolidation, re-subdivision plat, and final development plat for an ancillary truck trailer parking lot for the property generally located north of the intersection of Industrial Drive and Davie Street. The subject property consists of 4 separate lots, zoned M1. These lots will consolidate into a single parcel for the purpose of allowing the construction of a 21-space truck parking lot. Currently, the applicant operates on 3 contiguous parcels, pins ending in 038, 032, and 025. When looking for options to expand, Greif considered locating the parking area on a contiguous vacant lot southeast of the existing operations, pin ending in 033. Truck parking as a principal use is not permitted within the M1 zoning district. However, truck parking is permitted as ancillary to an allowable use such as manufacturing. Therefore, it is important to note that approval of the consolidation plat is necessary in order to allow the construction of the truck parking lot as proposed. The subject property is located in the area that is defined as the West Side District of the Lockport Downtown Master Plan. The plan calls for redevelopment of this area to create parkland with single and multifamily residential. According to the plan, the West Side District is underutilized as a critical demand generator for the downtown in the form of housing. housing development in the West Side District could capitalize upon numerous assets. The plan compares other downtown communities such as Tinley Park and Lamont, where there has been considerable urban housing development near urban downtown cores. Studies indicate that these communities have considerable market advantage over Lockport. A recommendation of the plan is to encourage relocation of existing manufacturing and business uses to the southern portion of the Texaco Chevron site. Based on the future land uses identified in the Lockport Downtown Master Plan and the fact that the property is in proximity to the metro station, a concern was raised that should the city be approached by a developer or an investor interested in assembling properties in the general area for a possible TOD-type development, which is typically found near a train station, that the property as a truck parking lot would hinder or prevent this opportunity. After further discussion, the applicant agreed to relinquish this property under these circumstances. An agreement has been submitted by the applicant and will be presented to the committee of the whole at the same time as these requested actions. The agreement stipulates the reasons, conditions, and means for acquisition of the property. The site plan calls for the parking area to be located at the southeast corner of the property. The approximate 30,000 square foot parking area is to be paved with curb and gutter. The expansion will provide 21 truck trailer parking spaces with new access from Canal Street. Currently, access to the site is from Davies from the south. New access is proposed at the southeast corner of the site from Canal Street. A photometric plan was submitted as part of the review and is in conformance with the city's ordinance. Lighting fixtures are downward lit with full cutoff. A final landscape plan was submitted and reviewed. Per city code, screening from public right-of-way is required and provided along Canal Street. The final landscape plan illustrates that screening will be provided with an 8-foot-high solid wood fence and frontage landscaping outside the fence. The frontage landscaping consists of 7 white fir and 22 dwarf Korean lilacs. The parking area will be screened by natural plantings along the south and a row of evergreen along the north. Staff has reviewed the final site plan and finds it to be in conformance with all applicable regulations and technical requirements. Should the commission find the consolidation plat and final development plans for the ancillary truck parking lot acceptable, the following motions are recommended. A motion to approve a consolidation re-subdivision plat and a motion to approve a final development plan for ancillary truck trailer parking lot, subject to the following condition. Any development engineering consultant fees incurred by the city for review or inspection of this project shall be paid by the applicant. The fees may be invoiced monthly. This concludes staff's analysis. The applicant is present if there are any questions.
Okay, if the applicant would like to step up to the microphone here. Okay, could I have your name, sir?
Yes, is Eric Nelson?
Okay, with the applicant. Mr. Oxley, any questions or concerns?
No, I think it'd be a great improvement, and it would help an existing business out immensely.
Mr. Likens, any questions or concerns?
My only question relates to the parking lot being completely paved. I'm assuming that's recommendations from our engineer. I only bring that up because one of our last cases, we were discussing flooding in the area just south of there, and we agreed on that case to go with just gravel. Now, maybe that's not appropriate for this, but I wasn't sure what the flooding concerns were there with all pavement, so I defer to your recommendation.
Oh, yeah, our preference is always, to have pavement, and there's a drainage ditch abutting this property.
Okay, that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shepherd, any questions or concerns?
No, excuse me. And what Scott said, I saw that drainage is just pretty big one. It's along the whole parking lot there, so I don't think the flooding's going to be an issue there, so it looks good.
Well, thank you. Now, I spent some time Saturday morning just observing the site firsthand there, and the drainage ditch is directly adjacent to it. It runs right into the river and everything, so drainage shouldn't be an issue. And Oh, I have no concerns or issues with it, and as was mentioned, the long-term plan, downtown development plan is considerably different than what's there now, but realistically, would we like to see all of these businesses move somewhere else? Sure. But where's the incentive to do that? You've been there since, what, the 1940s, I think?
I think 1972 it was, when they opened up the facility, yeah.
It's been there a long time.
It's been there a while.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with staff's recommendations. I have really no objections on this at all. Staff is requesting two separate motions here. First, we need a motion to approve a consolidation re-subdivision plat.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Oxley, second from Mr. Likens. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please. Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. And second, we need a motion to approve a final development plan for the truck trailer parking lot, subject to the listed conditions.
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Likens,
Second.
second from Mr. Oxley. Any questions on the discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please. Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. And this will go to the city, the committee of the whole.
Yeah, this will go to the committee of the whole next week on June 21st. The reason being is that the July 5th city council meeting has been canceled due to the holiday. And because of the length of time that we've kind of been working with the applicant and their willingness to work with us on the parcel, they have some commitments with the potential, with the buyer. And so we're just trying to help them stay in line with their due diligence period to be able to follow through in
Okay,
the
so it'll
manner
go
they
to the
agreed
committee of the whole.
The 21st of June, yes. And then they'll go to city council for final action on July 19th.
Okay, next up, ComEd. Thank you, sir.
very much, Pam. Thanks. Kim? Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Chairman Maloney. ComEd and Exelon Company requests final development plan, approval for expansion of the existing electrical substation, generally located at the southeast corner of the intersection of I-355 and 167th Street. On July 18, 2012, the City Council passed a resolution approving the concept plan for the ComEd substation and preliminary final plan review June 19, 2013. Construction of the existing substation was completed in 2013. ComEd would like to expand the existing substation to accommodate new and future electrical needs. The proposed expansion is located on the north side of the substation. The expansion will consist of a gravel pad, transitional grading, detention basin expansion, and compensatory storage area, modification to the existing storm sewer layout, and a building addition to house additional equipment. The site plan proposes expansion consists of an additional 1.5 acres in area. There is regulatory floodplain and inventoried wetland located on the property. A stormwater management plan and analysis report indicates that a wetland delineation was performed. The project as designed will not require wetland mitigation. A floodway construction permit is required from IDNR and has been submitted. The existing substation is enclosed by a 6-foot-high chain link fence with 1-foot barbed wire fence. The use of barbed wire as fencing is prohibited per city code. However, ComEd is exempt of this section and shall meet the security requirements of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The fence will be expanded to include the proposed expansion area. The fencing will match existing and will be screened with landscaping. Elevations of the equipment building were submitted. The existing building is approximately 1,200 square feet. A 432 square foot addition is proposed. The addition is needed to house 12 new cubicles. New construction will match existing. Access to the site is from Salem Drive to the east of the property via an internal driveway. The access Access to the property is gated. The existing facility is lit to security requirements. Proposed lighting fixtures will match existing. Much of the existing landscaping will be removed and replaced with similar plant material. Staff has reviewed this final site plan and finds it to be in conformance with all applicable regulations and requirements. Should the commission find the final development plans for the substation expansion acceptable, the following motion is recommended. A motion to approve final development plans for the substation expansion. That concludes staff's analysis. And the applicant is also present this evening.
Okay, thank you. And let the record show that Mr. Portfolio is now present. Is the applicant present? Or step up.
Good evening. My name is Martha Rodriguez. I'm the project manager from ComEd for this project, and I brought our team along, which includes Christopher Burke, our environmental engineer that submitted the analysis, and Sergeant Lundy, our electrical engineer, and our government affairs person.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shepherd, any questions or concerns for the applicant?
No, I don't, not this time.
Mr. Likens?
I have none.
Mr. Port-
There's environmental permits that we have to acquire, is that correct, with the wetlands? And stormwater management, and those have been applied for, and
The permits have been submitted.
in the deal with the fence, the barbed wire on the top is, even though our requirements don't allow it, it's a national security thing.
Yeah, we submitted an exemption letter that explains the national security code for electrical facilities in the United States, and it's part of the federal code.
And that trumps our local ones, right? Okay. Sound good, thank you.
Mr. Oxley?
I have a question for our attorney. ComEd just wrote the letter that we have to conform to this because of the federal codes and guidelines. Do you know anything about these, Tom? I mean,
I have, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I've dealt with, they're probably FEMA regulations, or are they,
They're Department of Security.
okay, so we've seen them before where they do take precedence over local zoning regulations, and especially the ones that were enacted after 9/11, where there were security concerns. The ones that I've dealt with previously were for, I believe they were cards for certain employees to get into certain controlled areas, and I know that those were, those took precedence over any kind of local regulations we had. So I can review this and report back, but I'm almost positive that, considering the sensitive nature of this facility, these regulations would prevail over our local zoning code.
that, I agree with that. My question was, ComEd wrote the letter, not the
Not from the
federal law.
federal government. Yeah, we can
federal
follow.
government.
I can take a
That's
look.
my only concern. I mean,
Yeah, we'll verify. I'll get back to the staff on it, and if there's anything else that needs to come back to you, we'll have it back to you
Okay.
very quickly.
that's all I have.
The staff review says the proposed expansion is located on the north side of the existing substation, but the drawing presented shows north, and it appears to be the new section is to the east rather than the north.
The new section is to the east of the existing
Okay,
substation.
then, that was the only thing that had me a little bit confused here. Well, other than that, I have no objections or concerns. I concur with staff's recommendations on this particular proposal. And I have a motion, we need a motion to approve the final development plans for the substation expansion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Portfolio, second from Mr. Oxley. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please. Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Will this also go to committee of the whole on the 21st?
No, this item will go on July 19th.
It goes to July? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then Ridge Development,
Thank you. Before you this evening is a concept plan for an industrial business park. The petitioner, Ridge Development LLC, has submitted concept plan for 109-acre parcel generally located between 163rd and 167th Street, east of the Panatone development and I-355. A concept plan for an industrial business park was previously approved for Hillwood Enterprises in 2015. The extensive pipeline easement and the costs associated with the required improvements did not make the project feasible. The approved plan expired without submittal of preliminary development plan. The subject property is now under contract by Ridge Development Company. They're proposing a similar concept plan and seek direction from the city for the proposed use and general layout of a light industrial business park. The proposed development is complementary to the adjacent 355 Corporate Center. The I-355 corridor master plan designates this property for office business park development. Because the proposal does not match the land use designation, staff recommended that the applicant seek direction through the concept plan review process. Upon approval of the concept, the plan will be refined and reviewed in detail when preliminary plans are submitted. The I-355 master plan update calls for this land to be developed for office business park uses in a campus-like setting. Per the plan description, warehouse, distribution, and other uses generating significant amounts of truck traffic should be discouraged. The plan calls for a public street connecting 167th Street and 163rd Street to be provided as part of the development of this site, possibly including a connection to the adjacent site to the west. It is recommended that the creek floodplain area running along the east edge of the property be enhanced as a buffer to residential areas designated to the east. The site plan calls for 4 buildings with a total building area of nearly 1.48 million square feet. The buildings will be oriented east-west. Loading and trailer parking areas are proposed between buildings. The proposed development would occur in 2 phases. Phase 1 consists of buildings 1 and 2, and Phase 2 consists of buildings 3 and 4. Full access to the property would occur from 163rd Street, which is within the city's jurisdiction, and a limited access on Division Street, 167th Street, which is in Will County jurisdiction. The applicant would be required to fully improve the south side of 163rd Street, with some improvements extending to the north side. The development would also benefit from additional access provided by John Lane Crossing. As previously mentioned, the I-355 corridor master plan references a public street connecting 163rd and 167th Streets. At the time that the 355 Corporate Center was reviewed, staff requested that a public road, John Lane's Crossing, be installed with the intent that it would connect into the subject property and extend to 167th Street. When Hillwood submitted their concept, a public road was shown. When Hillwood did not proceed with their proposal, staff reevaluated the actual need for a public roadway in this location, given the proximity of the property to Gauger Road and Cedar Road. In addition, curb cut access onto 167th Street under this jurisdiction of Will County and proximity to tollway right-of-way would not allow for a full access point. The proposed plan does not illustrate a public roadway. However, the design of the internal roadway network connects with John Lane Crossing and extends to 167th Street. The site plan shows an existing pipeline easement located along the east side of the property. The area east of the pipeline will be utilized for stormwater management and buffering of the entitled residential to the east. The applicant has agreed to dedicate 2 parcels of land for a much-needed water tower site on the northeast and a much-needed well site on the southeast. A north-south trail, as recommended by the bike and path plan, is not shown on the site plan, nor sidewalks. Both will be required and reviewed with the submission of a preliminary development plan. Building elevations and landscape plans are not part of this review and will be required during preliminary plan review. Should the commission find the concept plan for the proposed light industrial business park acceptable, the following motion is suggested. A motion to approve the concept plan for an industrial business park subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant acknowledges that staff has completed a general review only of the concept plan, and that a more detailed review will occur with submission of a preliminary development plan. Staff comments at this time are general, intended to outline steps necessary if the project moves forward, and to provide guidance and considerations for future submittals. A special use permit for a planned industrial development shall be requested with submission of a preliminary development plan application, since the property is greater than 10 acres in size. A development agreement shall be submitted with submission of a preliminary development plan application to address uses, general design standards, as well as other such details, obligations necessary for development of the property as an industrial business park. A future annexation of the property and annexation agreement will be required. A future zoning request for this property will be M1 limiting manufacturing. Coordination with the owners of 355 Corporate Park is needed regarding connection from John Lane Crossing. Comments as identified in the development engineering consultant review letters related to the plan review and traffic review will need to be addressed at the time of preliminary PUD and plan review. Concept plan approvals are valid for 1 year from the date of approval. Approval of a concept plan provides the applicant reasonable assurances to move forward with submission of a preliminary development plan. The preliminary development plan shall be in general conformance with an approved concept plan, and upon submittal of a preliminary development plan, staff will complete a detailed review of the report of the proposal. This concludes staff's analysis, and the applicant is also present this evening.
Okay, would the applicant step up to the microphone, please? State your name.
Hi, I'm Darcy Spankhauser with Ridge Development.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oxley, any questions or concerns for the applicant here?
I've got a lot of questions and concerns. I see you sent out courtesy notices to adjacent property owners.
Correct.
I'd like to hear from any property owners that are here, if they have anything to say. I don't.
Yes, sir. Are there any property owners adjacent that would like to comment on this particular case? Sure, step up to the microphone. This isn't scheduled for a public hearing, but we'll accommodate. Please step up, state your name and address. Require an address.
My name is Guy Scalzetti. I don't know if you need my address or...
Yes, please, for the record.
15624 West 163rd Street. I just had a few questions. This is new to me. Never had to really deal with anything like this before, but just reading through the plans, I know this is preliminary, so I'm going to ask questions. If you can answer them, fine. If not, that's fine too. We can ask them again at a later date. So what I was reading in the plan here, the number one, the turn lane or the access lane into the park it starts directly across the street from my driveway, and it ends to actually turn into the access road directly across the street from Bob and Rosemary's driveway. Since there is a John Lane's Crossing Road further down the road to the west, I was wondering if there would be any way to move that turn lane and actually just use the existing turn lane into John Lane's Crossing and then somehow make a frontage road beyond that to get across the front of building number 1 and then turn in to go south, or even take the road and move it in between building number 1 and building number 2, and maybe giving more room in between those two buildings to come through to alleviate the traffic that would be right across the street from our house.
You're saying is, you would recommend that they access the entire development from the John Lane Drive and eliminate the one on the eastern edge?
Yes.
Okay, that's a consideration.
Okay. Secondly, I was looking at the plan and I noticed that they had a landscape buffer on the south side of 163rd Street. I was wondering if there'd be any way to consider putting a landscape buffer on the north side of 163rd Street and our yards to block the view, and maybe to eliminate some noise with a natural landscape buffer as opposed to any kind of fencing or anything like that. Just another consideration.
Yeah, at the time that this would come in, if this moves forward in the process at a more detailed level, the actual zoning ordinance has requirements for buffering.
Okay.
So they will be required, and it may include a combination of berming and dense plant material, but there is a requirement for that, and one would be provided.
Okay. Noise limits, is there, like, is this going to be a 24-hour operating facility? Since I noticed you said light.
Yeah, well, city code requires that the light be zero candle power at the property line. The thing is, without identifying the future tenants, there's no way of knowing if this is going to be a 9 to 5 or an around-the-clock operation, because we don't know who the tenants are going to be.
Okay. And so there would be no restrictions on that either?
Realistically, we can't impose a curfew. Staff?
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, we dealt with this on a previous project, and there is a noise ordinance that the city has that we're able to try to enforce. Usually, the operations like this are designed so most of the noise is directed away from residential areas. You certainly would have truck traffic on 163rd Street, but as far as the noise coming from the facilities themselves, they're pretty much self-contained, where most of the activity is inside the building. And in a previous project that we've been working on, there are restrictions on letting trucks run all night, where we are not allowing that for that other project. We would do the same thing for a project like this. We would take a lot of those same conditions and have those apply to this project.
Okay. Is there height restrictions on the building? Does Lockport Township or what have you have height restrict 25 feet, 27 feet, 30 feet?
In the M1 zoning district, the height restriction would be 35 feet. When it goes through the PUD process, there is some flexibility to increase the height. I mean, obviously, as an industrial building, and perhaps the applicant can also respond better to that, there is a certain clearance that I think standard industrial buildings require. So the PUD may incorporate an increase in height, but again, I would defer what their minimum, maximum is for this type of product.
Okay, because you guys had said light industry, or what was the, I just kind of assumed that it would be 27 to 30 feet or something like that. A lot of the buildings I work in, I'm doing an Amazon now, and it's 55 feet tall. And if it's going to, I just would prefer not to look at something like
I
that.
don't believe these would be any higher than the adjacent Panatone buildings, would they?
Correct. Correct, and I think the buildings
I
out
missed
there.
that.
Oh, the Panatone buildings for the development next door, I think the height of those are 40 feet or 42 feet.
Yeah, I believe our intention is to build anywhere between 32 to 36 foot clear.
Okay, but that's to the height then, the top of the building? Okay.
I think one of our biggest concerns is the water table. Once the new water tower is put in, I would imagine we would be sharing the same well. And if you guys go a whole lot deeper than what our ours are, it would probably run the risk of the well going dry. So if that happens, or when that happens, how does that problem get addressed? If our wells run dry, what happens to us with having no water at that time?
The tower site and the well site that they're proposing would be for community usage. It's not their individual use. The city has been working with Strand Associates and has completed a water study as well as a sanitary study. And based on that study, the city actually requires additional well sites and tower sites on this side of town. And so what they're basically doing is willing to give us those parcels so that at the time the city requires that this infrastructure improvements be made for the community purposes, that we would have them available. So they will have no impact. They're not asking for their own well sites. This would be a community well site to improve the water and amount of water in Lockport on this side of town.
With that being said, would that still affect our wells?
Strata would have to answer that, I guess. They're the expert.
We can talk with our consultant who's working with us on that, and we can follow up with that.
That's probably a big deal. And all the dock doors, at least the dock doors for building number 1 would be facing to the south, so it would be a finished facade. That would, the north facade would be
Right, yeah.
finished.
Correct.
Freight doors on buildings 1 and 3 would be on the south sides, and on 2 and 4 would be on the north sides. I think that's what's on the screen right now.
Okay. I think that's all I got. The tentative start date, is there anything like that?
We're a long ways away. It's not going to be this year. I can assure you that much. We're quite a ways away on that. There's 3 stages of approval with the city, with the planning commission and the city, and it's a pretty involved, long process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would we be able to attend the, future
Absolutely.
meetings?
Everything is-
We would be notified and so on?
It'll be on the city's website.
Yes. With the next step in the process, it requires a public hearing, and state statute requires that all property owners within 250 feet of the subject property would be notified via a certified return receipt letter.
Okay. And would there be any intention on trying to, I guess, I don't know if this is the right word, to annex us into Lockport Township, considering we're unincorporated Homer Glen?
No, we would not actively incorporate you.
Oh, no, we're not in the business of forced annexation like with, if you want to come into the city, let us know and we'll work on it. If you don't, that's fine.
Okay.
I think. Was there anyone else there that wanted to
That's all I
speak
got
on
for
this
now.
particular
Thank you.
application?
Mr. Chairman, may I clarify one issue on notice? Yeah, just so there's no uncertainty about the notice. If this moves forward from the Plan Commission, it will go to the City Council for a consideration of the concept plan. There's not another notice sent for that council meeting. That council meeting would most likely be in July, July 19th, if it does move forward from the commission tonight. I think what Ms. Hurth was addressing was, if this gets approved as concept plan and it does come back to the Plan Commission, that's when the notice to the 250, everyone within the 250-foot perimeter would be receiving their notice. So if it does go to the City Council, there's no formal notice you'll get in your mailbox, but you'll know tonight what the Plan Commission is going to do, and if it is going to the council on the 19th, you'll know about it tonight.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Robert Lewis. I live the house on 167th, 15504, the first house east of it. My biggest concern is the building that you guys allowed to go up next to us already with the one next to us, the drainage. If you've ever watched the drainage while that building's been going up, the drainage is awful. The land we live on is on a natural hill going westbound. The water rolls downhill out of the stuff and hits that building today and goes along their berm and just completely wipes out and has a trench about 2 feet deep right now, completely along between the property you guys are wanting to develop and the old property. Now, you plan on doing that right next to mine, and there is no way it's going to be able to do that because you stripped the land. I watched them for 3 months walk away with load after load after load after black dirt, and now that land is 6 feet lower than the land next to it. What do you plan on doing to this land? You plan on walking away with 1 million buckets of dirt, just like you guys did to the last one, and approve that?
Oh, that was the developer, and we're going to discuss that with the developer. They're proposing it to us. This isn't a city's project, it's the developer's project that they're proposing.
I have concerns. The biggest concern is the water, because you guys went ahead and approved the last building, and you should see the rain, the way the rain comes out of those fields today and hits that building perimeter that you guys allowed to put that berm in there now, and it hits it, and it goes directly south. It goes under 167th Street, and it just goes right where that beautiful new Commonwealth Edison building you guys just approved. And that wetlands is getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the years that I've been watching it. And now you're about to take even more acres and run it under 167th Street and make that wetlands even more. I'm very concerned about how much lower that land is going to be to my property. Look at what they did today. You've got a wall on that John Lane Street. Have you seen that retainer wall? Is that what I'm going to get now next to my property? Are you going to approve something like that?
We haven't.
That's not nice, neighbor.
No.
That's what I'm concerned
No,
about.
and your concerns are of value to us, too. We'll definitely take that into
I
consideration.
hear a road that's supposed to be going from 163rd Street to 167th. Where would that be dumping out? It's not on the picture here, but I hear about a plan of relieving the traffic somewhere. You're going to put a driveway on 167th Street. I'm very curious of where that would go.
Okay, we'll let the petitioner respond. Thank you for your comments and concerns. We'll
Okay.
definitely take
Can't
that
wait
into
to get the letter.
consideration. Thank you.
Sure, I'll just make a few comments to some of his questions in terms of the elevation of the soil and where the ground level will be in relation to the other sites nearby. So basically, we have balanced this site so that there's roughly 20 feet of fall running from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. So basically, we are going to be moving a significant amount of dirt from the northern portion to the southern portion to help kind of balance everything out. In terms of the wetlands, obviously, we are going to be having to deal with the wetlands as well. We've started the process with Christopher Burke in terms of getting the jurisdictional determination as well. Again, the connection between 163rd and 167th, that is part of the 355 master plan, and that is something that has been kind of a known requirement from Lockport and not necessarily from us as the developer.
Was there anyone else here that cared to speak in this particular proposal? Yes, sir, will you step up?
Good evening, Daniel Dunn, 15642 West 163rd Street. I can't overemphasize, we're worried about our wells. We want to put a water tower in there and drill a new well. What does happen if we just go dry? Since we're unincorporated, who do we turn to fight for us or something like that, or are we just stuck out in the blue? I just can't overemphasize that. You can't live without water. And it's just easy to say, well, it won't affect you or we'll be all right. I don't know. Water tables are funny. And there's massive buildings that they're putting in here. And you know, it's like this county, this section of Will County, why don't we name it like Warehouse City or something, you know, for a name for it or something, because that's what's going up, warehouse after warehouse after warehouse. No one's here trying to deny you to make money or to get some tax incentive or something like that, but that's what it's turning into. I know that's progress if that's what they call it. And also, I'm concerned about the truck traffic. What the gentleman here next to me, Guy, said the road, the consideration to stop some of this truck traffic would be imperative. If you look at the size of these buildings, the proposals, all the truck traffic is going to come in there. No one's going to be naive to think that it's going to be a 9-to-5 operation. That's not going to happen. The tremendous size of them or something. So obviously they're going to go around the clock with them. Another thing is that the road, 163rd Street that I'm on, is supposed to just be for 7 tons or less. And now sometimes they say strictly enforced. Well, that's hard to believe, because a lot of times you see it, they're not. And they just do shortcuts or something like that to alleviate this. If they had that existing road out to the west of me there, if they could make some kind of proposal that'll alleviate that, make that a main traffic route, rather than going in front of Mr. Thompson's house, trucks driving in or out. At this time, maybe you could take that under consideration. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Sir. Okay. We're-
So just to be clear, in fact, there is going to be a road that is going to connect 167th to 163rd?
This is all under discussion right now. We haven't, that's why we're here talking about it.
Okay.
Under consideration.
What they're being proposed right now, originally, when this project first came in with Hillwood, the comprehensive plan for the city does show a public roadway going through the center of the property. However, once we went through that review process and based on further reevaluation and topo conditions of the property, a full-blown public roadway doesn't make much sense in staff's opinion. So what the applicant is showing, and there is, the access on 167th Street is shown, it's just difficult to see because it's a little lighter, but if you look at where John Lane Crossing is right here, and then their internal roadways go this way, and then it comes straight down.
Okay.
And it's a limited access, which means you can't, it's not full access, so you can't come on both directions on 167th Street and turn in and out of the site. It's going to be a limited access. And mostly because the county has jurisdiction over 167th Street, and they have certain requirements as to where and how access can be designed. And then again, because of the tollway, there's some tollway right-of-way too that kind of gets in the way and helps to dictate how the access, where it would have to be and how it would have to be designed. So it's not a public roadway, it's just an internal network of roadwork that could take someone from John Lane Crossing through to 167th, but it's not going to be an encouraged public roadway because it can't.
So once people figure out that
It's
road
possible.
goes through, that will become a shortcut for a lot of people
Possible.
to avoid 167 and Gauger Road.
Yes, that's a possibility.
But that would be John Lane's Crossing.
Yes.
The road further to the east side of the buildings, there will be no road connecting 167 and
No.
163.
No, it connects internally. I mean, someone, if they came in on that, they'd have to go this way and down. But no, the connection would be, so to speak, right there.
And is there any type of plan in the future, or what have you, that is going to do anything between 163 and 159 on that side? Or even on that side, the east or west side of
No,
this?
no, there would be no roadway connection on that side of the property.
Even between 163rd and 159th Street?
Oh, between 163rd and 159th Street, if there is a connection, it kind of starts to go off through the other entitled residential property that's within the jurisdiction of Lockport.
So that would be to the east of us?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your comments. We'll take it all under consideration. Mr. Oxley?
A question for staff. In one of your notations is the Will County Center for Economic Development is working on an plan to address truck traffic in Will County. Well, we're all dealing with truck traffic, and I've got a lot of issues with that myself, but when do you think that plan is going to be completed? Any ideas?
I'm not certain of a date certain. I know it's in progress. I know Will County CED has updates that come through every couple months. You can actually go to the website. We listed it in the staff report. And for the residents who might be interested in it, it's www.willcountyfreight.org. www.willcountyfreight.org.
We have a letter in our packet, Pam or Kim, from Wade B. Light. Who is Wade Light?
Wade Light owns several parcels that owns the parcel. If you look at the zoning map over there, over Tom's head, Where Panatone is located, which is the gray piece, and they own, Wade Light owns the residential there as well as there, and down and through a little part. Yeah, where it used to be the McNaughton property.
So the ones that McNaughton's owned
Yes.
and all that?
Yes.
Okay, because, I mean, if you read this letter, it's pretty interesting because they're objecting to the zoning change, but yet they're asking that we change their property to that. But if they don't get it, they don't want them to get it. So, I mean, it's residential, and my biggest concern is that we make a big, huge planning mistake here, like was done 30 years ago at 151st Street and Archer Avenue with the warehouses and the subdivisions on 151st. And I think we need to give this some time to let the community development, economic community development from Will County, get a master plan done for us to show us where the truck traffic is, show us the impact on the residents, because we've got a lot of issues with these trucks now. And all the truck traffic we're getting in town is not strictly from these warehouses. We're getting a lot from Crest Hill and Romeoville, cutting through 159th to 355. I'd like to see that study before I make any formal opinion on this. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Mr. Perfilio?
So I'm looking at the zoning map over there, and it's like 90% of this property is white, which means it's under Will County control for now.
Yes.
My first question is there an agreement we have with the county on this property for their input or, you know, their ordinances that would control over ours or with ours, or ours would control over theirs before we annex it, if we decide to annex it? I mean, what has Will County said about this whole thing? Because I know that they're driving the bus here with the economic development plan that you were talking about, and I really don't know what it's about, if they're widening roads, if they're reconstructing the roads, if they're trying to put corridors through Lockport for the trucks to come through without impacting residents. But my first question is, what has Will County said about this property and being rezoned? Has there been any memos or letters or anything?
Well, I can't speak on the county, on behalf of the county regarding the road improvements, but what I can tell you about an unincorporated parcel is that should a developer approach the Will County Land Use Department and request a development such as this one, they do have zoning classifications that could accommodate. However, the first advice that the county would offer the applicant would be to contact the city of Lockport.
Because it's agricultural now, county,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Exactly.
Okay. Question for the developer, have you had any coordination with the county on this, and what have they said to you? Did they say to go to Lockport, or what did they say to you?
We met with Will County and we spoke to them about this project, but actually this topic never came up in terms of who to approach first, because frankly, we had approached Pam and her team initially to discuss the project, given that Hillwood had received their concept plan approval back in 2015. So our first stop was Lockport, and then we went to Will County. But at that point in time, when we talked to them, they made no objections.
Why did you go to the county?
Mr. Chairman and the members of the commission, if I could
Yeah,
offer.
so initially we went to the county to discuss access on 167th.
If I could offer a few comments also. Usually the county will take a hands-off approach to municipal development. They're not necessarily going to come in and make a recommendation one way or the other. You might have individual county board members who represent a particular geographic district come in and give their own opinion on behalf of their nearby constituents, but the county board or the county executive would not come in and try to impose any of the county regulations on the city. Primarily what drives municipal development is the availability of water and sewer service, and obviously the county is not in that business, so projects like this really have to develop within the corporate limits of a municipality.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. I don't know if it was after 2015 or before 2015 when there was a concept approval for Hillwood Enterprises, I think was before you, but we spent a lot of time and effort and resources and money on the 355 corridor plan. And that drives a lot of our planning decisions, as Mr. Oxley had said. And so the document that I look at that's the most important to me is the 159th Street sub-area page that was included in our packets for parcel number 21, which is colored blue for office business park. To the west of it is industrial, which is Pantone. So to me, I followed the 159th Street sub-area recommendation, which says, and I quote, "Warehouse distribution uses and other uses generating significant truck traffic should be discouraged, period." And so to me, I don't support it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. And another thing is, because of the truck traffic that's been generated from the last even year, from the beginnings of all the warehouses that are being built in town, we don't have a long-term plan in Lockport on how to address it. We're just reacting to it and trying to get some money from the developers to put in turning lanes and things like that. There hasn't been a comprehensive traffic study that handles that. So, as you said in the packet, Will County is trying to help with that, with the Center for Economic Development having this friendly freight mobility plan. The truck traffic is the thing that everybody is concerned about, and since there's not a handle on it yet with what exactly they're going to do, I, like Mr. Oxley, can't make a decision on if I support this or not, but for tonight, I do not support it because it's not conducive to the adjacent land use or to the 355 corridor plan, and that's my comments for tonight. Thank you.
And Mr. Likens?
I would agree that the Will County truck traffic analysis is an important piece to this. And I think that it may be beneficial to bring to the table how much additional truck traffic you believe this development would impact. I think that Guy's comment about if this were to move forward, that the entry to this development be located as far west as possible. I don't know that legal-wise, using the John Lane crossing is possible. If it is, that's great. I think that it's good positioning all of the stormwater management to the east to create as wide of a buffer as possible to the potential future residential development. The connection from 163rd to 167th, it sounds like that's kind of going away, and I think to isolate any potential truck traffic coming to this development to Gauger to 163rd in a very short distance, and to keep those trucks in a very tight leash is important. The final comment I have, again, in relation to the comments about wells, certainly if new, deeper wells are dug, impact to other residential wells in the area should be considered, and I don't know the legalese, again, of bringing those folks onto city water or not, but maybe that's an option. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd?
I agree with the other guys up here. I've not been on this board as long as they have, but the one thing I've been impressed with since I've been on the board is that this board always listens to the people when they come in and make their comments, and I've been in other situations where they really don't listen to the people, where they don't really take their concerns seriously, and I've been really impressed with this board that they do that, and I understand the concern about the truck traffic, and when you said about the wells, I grew up on Division Street. I was all over this area growing up as a kid, and I'm still around that area. And, you know, my question was with the wells, is there any type of water survey that's done for, and I'm sure there is before the city wells going into waters, because we've dug large wells on the golf course before, and there's always, you try to get some idea of the water that's available. It's not always easy to do. But I know that's one thing that I hope we would do, or that, because it'll vary a lot, and nobody can tell you exactly until you drill that well what's gonna happen, so you don't know. So I understand that concern, and, but I agree, I would agree with Dave, let's hold this off a little bit and I'd like to have as much information as I can. And I think we need to strike a good balance with our development and what we're gonna do. I wanna be I've lived in Lockport all my life. I've been here 60 years. So I want us to be progressive and progressive a city, but I also want the other balance where I want to preserve what I grew up in. And this is the area I grew up in. When I grew up, there was nothing past Farrell Road except a couple farmhouses. So I've seen the development. I just want to make sure we've got to strike that good balance there. And I love Lockport, and that's what I want to do. So that's the comments I've had. And Guy, one question I had for you. You're on the north side of the street there. Where are you in reference to where Matt Thompson has his farm equipment? Are you farther west or east of him?
One house down.
West or east?
East.
East, okay. Okay. You're not towards the housing development. That's across the street right there. From, well, that's Panatone where Rigoni lives in that, so. Okay. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
I did have one more question for them, if I could just slow out there.
Bring it.
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but just the lighting.
Step up to the microphone, sure.
Yeah, just because it's being recorded and she can only pick it up in the mic.
Just the lighting, is it going to be direct lighting or indirect lighting in the parking lots?
Typically, there's lighting that's on the edge of the building that will shine to cover the parking lots.
So it'll be direct?
As Chairman Maloney said, that zero
well-
candles at the,
The city has lighting standards they have to comply with.
I'm sorry?
No, they need to talk in the mic too, because Kathy can't, you guys need to talk in the mic because she can't pick it up then.
sorry about that. Yeah, just to reiterate, as Chairman Maloney said, it's 0-foot candles
Okay.
at the perimeter, so to Darcy's point, all the lights are facing down. There shouldn't be any visible light to you from your property.
All right, I missed that.
Yeah, and the city code requires they be full cutoff, so they're gonna be like a shoebox style, and so that the light goes down and out. You can't spill out in the other direction.
And maybe one other thing, is it up to the developer who puts the building up, or is it gonna be up to the occupant who leases the building or buys the building to put perimeter security cameras on their building? Or do you guys do that as part of your build-out?
That's not part of our standard build-out. It would be something that the tenant would require if they need it.
Okay. And are these buildings, you're planning on leasing them or selling them?
We plan on leasing and then potentially selling them.
Okay. I think that's all I got for now anyways. Thank you.
Okay, my thoughts on this. First off, this proposal really flies in the face of the 355 corridor master plan. As was stated previously, this is a far more intensive usage than was proposed in the 355 corridor master plan. And I was involved in that plan, start to finish, and with the revisions, and I don't find fault at all. I'm concurrence with what the master plan calls for. With the proposal here, the access drive off of 163rd is at the far eastern side. And I agree with the gentleman here previously that the access from 163rd should be strictly from the John Lane Crossing Road. That could be extended farther south. More than sufficient access could be provided to all what was being proposed here from the John Lane access road. And I see no need to have this road on the far east side. Also, in the far southwest corner, you're showing a right-in, right-out drive up to Division Street. I can't believe the township's even going to go along with that. At that particular point, Division Street is about 30 or 40 feet above grade because that's the ramp up to the bridge over the tollway. I just don't see that happening at all.
So if you don't mind, so a few points regarding 163rd. So The intent was to have John Lane Crossing be the main truck route. The access that you see to the east side of those buildings was meant to be an auto only. So really was meant to separate the truck and auto traffic. So that was the purpose for that far eastern access you see. In terms of the right in, right out, so as Darcy mentioned, we met with Will County. That was the most that we could get from them. We had initially proposed a access point to the east of Building 4, basically where you see, same with Building 1. They did not allow that because it was offset with the prime business parcel. So that was the intent of removing that east access point from Building 4 and then at least getting a right in, right out.
But the thing is, you would still have 18-wheelers coming in and out off of Division Street.
No, the intent is that all trucks would go north up to John Lane Crossing.
Division Street doesn't have a load limit, does it? I don't think it does.
No, it's county, but Gauger Road does.
The intent is no trucks would run to Division, they would all run to
That's a big word,
163rd.
intent. The whole point is, we need to know where these trucks are going. It's created havoc, and we're mixing up, we've got a plan to do this, and we're just gonna throw that out and not listen to it. And because you wanna put these warehouses in there, we need more data on this.
Yeah, and we will certainly go through a full traffic study through preliminary, but I think the intent, at least from our
How many
perspective,
trucks
was...
per day?
Again, it's hard to say at this point, but certainly it's information that we'd love to provide you guys at a point where we've gone through a more formal planning process.
Well, these are all speculative buildings. You have no tenants, so to speak. You don't know if they're going to be 9 to 5 or 24/7, or if they're going to be manufacturing or warehouse, or what the intended use is. You know, and the thing is, that kind of gives me pause. We're being asked to approve a concept plan really without adequate information here. We like to send everything to the city council with no unanswered questions or unresolved issues, and we haven't got enough information here to do that, as I see it.
And you've got to understand in the past, I mean, and just understand where we're coming from. We've had developers come in and said that, well, these are going to be, we're going to bring in good paying jobs, and we're going to bring in this and this and this and that. And then the next sentence is, we don't have any users for the building. So how can you tell us you're going to have a good paying job when you don't know who's going to use your building? And you don't know, you're only going to have this many trucks when you don't know who's going to use your building. And we've got a mess on the north end with warehouses versus houses. And we've got residential property to the east of you, to the north of you. And we need to be very thoughtful on that process, because it was bad planning 30 or 40 years ago, and we don't want to make that same mistake. And that's where we're at with this, because we just need more information.
And I would have to say the concerns raised by the residents here regarding their individual private well and everything are valid. If the city puts in a well here and lowers the water table to where they're high and dry, what recourse do they have?
No, the only recourse is they can tap on the city's sewer and water,
Or
but
they
at whose
try
expense?
and dig a deeper well?
Yeah, at whose expense?
Either way, it's, you
You know what's gonna happen.
Sure.
So, I mean, and it's not the developer's fault, because you never know what's gonna happen with the water table when they drill it.
Did you see
Maybe
that
fine,
Strand
maybe.
did a study, or they're in the middle of it, for the water?
Yeah, they published a study.
They published it. And did they provide water levels for before and after they drilled the well to see if the wells they have are deep enough?
You know,
Pretty simple concept they should have in the report.
well, we can bring Strand to a meeting, an upcoming meeting, so that they can explain the water study and the sanitary study. That is not something, you know, other than getting general information, I've not been involved with. But this is a community-wide study. It's not just a particular location. It looked at the north, south, east, west of the community, looked at where we were at in terms of capacity for sanitary, where we were at for our need for water. From what I understand, I mean, typically the city has relied on shallow wells. We need a deep well. The locations that we can drill deep wells are very limited. The particular area we did want to do is a protected area due to a protected endangered dragonfly species. So we.
Just want a deep well?
This one would be I think it's a deep well.
So it shouldn't affect, but I'm not the well expert, so it
Right.
shouldn't affect the shallow well.
So this is good data that maybe an executive summary from the report could go in the packet to help us, keep in consideration people that even though they're not in the city, they're impacted. And the gentleman that wrote the letter that owns all that land around there, it's only fair to him on how this is gonna impact him as well.
Well, you know what, if you read that letter, it isn't, you know what I mean? It's like hooray for me, and well, if you do it to them, I don't, if you don't give it to me, I don't want them to have it, but I want it. So,
Yeah.
come on.
Well, either way, I'm getting at the data part of it.
It's,
And
well, the data is very important, but then you have to question, what's our purview? What do we have to do with the wells and the water? I mean, we're zoning. We're planning and zoning. We don't plan where the wells are, we don't know anything about them. But it does, I mean, it does come in, but to how far?
Yeah.
To our effect.
The question, gentleman had expressed concerns about floodwater coming off of Panatone towards their property to the east and to the south. In the area adjacent to the ComEd there, I believe that is a wetland. But the thing is, are these proposed detention ponds adequate for the development here? You're going to take a bean field and put on all this impermeable roofs and pavement and everything. That's going to generate a tremendous amount of rain runoff. Are these retention ponds going to be sufficient, or is it, they're still going to get?
I mean, what we have here is the matter of how far from, these people live from the existing warehouse. They're uphill by 20, well, you got 22 feet of fall on their property alone. So
Yeah.
what is the fall to 355? You're probably 40, 45 feet. The water's going that way. So they were made to put a detention pond in to hold the water for 24 hours before it releases off their property. And if you go down Division Street, there's a dam over there that overflows all the time. That's something the county and Homer Glen haven't addressed in 50 years, and they're not going to. So where does it end? I mean, as long as the developer has to take care of the water on their property, not 2 miles east, which I understand what you're talking about, but as we move that way, they'll do that. And in most cases, when you get something out east, the detention ponds actually helps the flooding that we've had in town, because it contains the water.
Since you sat on the 355 planning study committee, my question to you was, when it was originally zoned for office and business park, was that because of the transition from the Panatone to the residential? Or was it to
Yes.
cut down on truck traffic?
No,
What was the reasoning behind
it was to make it a transition. And the thing is, and this was updated, 4 or 5 years ago, I think?
2014.
3 years ago. Obviously, the demand for warehouse and distribution centers in the last 3 years has exploded all over for Will County. It's not just Lockport. I mean, it's New Lenox, Joliet, Manuka, Mokina, Elwood, are all, these things are, popping up. So the thing is, admittedly, the marketplace has changed, and the demand for this type of development has greatly increased since this was updated 3 years ago. But,
We're losing a lot of our office zoning.
well, the thing is,
That's one thing too, there's not a lot of blue left on that map.
there isn't a lot of demand for office space.
I understand, but that's another issue is we're trading here all of our office for
Well, then-
manufacturing.
Then perhaps,
That's not gonna attract people at
perhaps the
Lockport.
master plan needs to be updated again. But this is what we have to live with right now.
Well,
People aren't gonna move into Lockport.
Will County Center
Warehouses
for
are gonna
Economic
move out.
Development is working on that. So are they working on ours also, or all of Will County, or just Joliet, or Elwood? I don't know.
Well, we've discussed this pretty thoroughly, gentlemen. What is our pleasure? Well,
Come on up.
yeah,
Things are just popping into my mind as we go along, I apologize. In regards to just making a comment towards the what would be the east entrance to building number 1 for passenger vehicles only. Just by past experiences that I'm going through right now, I'm doing a big the company I work for, we're doing a big distribution center for Best Buy off of Remington Boulevard and Weber Road off of I-55. There's a double turn lane in, and it's the entrance and exit is shared by semis and cars without any problem whatsoever. So that absolutely could be done, because I understand there's a retaining wall at the Panettone entrance right now on the east side. There's a big retaining wall there.
Something that will come is down the road in Berlin.
I understand, I just wanted to make a comment that that can be shared trucks and cars. Without a doubt, it can be. And then what kind of reassurances would we have, if any whatsoever, if the wells went dry? Would that be something that could be put in writing or reassured to us?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we would certainly have Strand and Associates send a representative to a future meeting to address that. I believe, and again, I think Steve is correct, this will be a deep well, and I'm not the expert either, but I think the deep wells go down about 1,000 feet. I don't think your wells go more than, I'm not sure what they are. Are they 300? Yeah. So you're tapping into an aquifer that is completely different than where the shallow wells have their water coming from. But we would certainly not want to approve a plan that would cause private wells to go dry. It's an issue that has arisen throughout a lot of the industrial areas that have been approved in Joliet and Elwood and a few of the others, and I'm not aware of any major impact that has been had on the private wells there, because these new municipal wells are getting down about 1,000 feet.
Well, I do know, my sister lives in Oswego, they live close to Caterpillar. My sister's well was shut down twice because Caterpillar went 1,000 feet, and it shut my sister's 350-foot well down until she sucked sand twice, and she went after Caterpillar and they put them in twice. So she has a new well because of Caterpillar. I'm literally 250 feet from that well, and my well only goes 300 feet. The other thing that you guys keep talking about is that access pond. I'd like somebody to see next time it rains really well, go check out that access pond that you guys let them put in there. It completely dumps within 2 or 3 hours after it rains. All the water that they develop from those 3 buildings that they have now goes right under 167th Street. There's literally a new creek now between the proposed site that you guys are looking at now and the one that you guys are already approved. There's a new creek that runs there today. I watch it every time it rains. What I'm scared about is the creek that you guys are going to create between my property and the 4 new buildings.
We're waiting for a motion?
Yes.
I want to make a motion to table it, and I want to be kind of specific about the data we're looking for to help you guys out to see where we're coming from. The most important thing that we're interested in is the vehicular impact to the area. So we talked about a traffic study being done. Now that traffic study, for it to have any weight, it's got to be more of a regional traffic study, not just the box of where you're developing and looking at turning movements and things like that. We're more concerned about coordinating your traffic study with the Will County economic development study that's published in the packet on the website that Pam pointed out. So we're trying to make sure that you are sensitive to that instead of just saying we're going to ramrod these 4 buildings in and, you know, tough luck, you're stuck with it. Because truck traffic is a very sensitive issue in this room. We've had a lot of issues with it over the last 2 or 3 years with all the developments. So the traffic study is very important, and I would encourage you to coordinate it with the Will County Land Use Department and the traffic study that they're doing for the region for logistics and truck mobility through our town. That's the first thing.
May I interject real quickly? It's not a Will County land use initiative. It's a public-private partnership between Will County and the Will County CED. So it's, and I don't necessarily know the specifics, that's why I put the website in there and suggest that you go to that.
Who's funding that?
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I believe there's a grant that was secured by the county to fund it. And I don't know the source of the grant, but it's on the website.
Yes.
And I know they've retained Ann Schneider, who's the former secretary of the Illinois Department of Transportation.
So, yeah, I could
And
ask her and talk to her.
she's in charge of it. I know that conversation I had with a county official today, they have some preliminary thoughts, and one of the thoughts is certainly getting truck traffic to an interstate on the most direct route and not having trucks being able to meander through residential areas, non-truck routes, township highways, those kinds of things, because I think that's a major problem in a lot of other parts of the county. For Lockport, most of the warehousing projects that have been approved are within a couple of minutes of an interchange. And this one would be too. So I'm sure the geographic location of this, if it were approved someday, would have access that would be within whatever the plan is. But I think there are still other issues that the plan will tell us about truck traffic.
Okay. And the second data item that I'd like to include in the motion is the drainage issue. We talked about, the gentleman talked about the southeast corner, I think, and we talked about, Chairman Maloney had brought up the fact that is the detention that's on there adequate. Mr. Gidley said he didn't see anything yet on it. An executive summary or something that shows that what you have over on the east side is adequate would be fine. And the third piece of data is not the developer. It's if someone from Strand could come in and sit down and give us an executive summary of the impacts that would happen here, that would help out. And I am also bothered by the fact that there's not a direct access from 163rd to 167th Street. So I don't know why it's not being included, but maybe you can address that issue with a little bit more backup. There's a lot of questions we have on that too, so.
Okay, so your motion is to table?
Motion is table, and I wanted to give them direction on why we're tabling it and what we would require them to provide us with before we sit down next time. Is there any other commissioners that have any other data requests?
We think some of our concern with the residential nearby also.
I think we've raised a variety of issues here.
Okay.
Do we have a second on the motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Second from Mr. Oxley. Have a roll call vote, please. Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion 5-0 to table. Got-
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I'm assuming that it's, the table motion is to the next meeting, and if it needs to be tabled again, you'll have the discretion to table it again at your July meeting.
And what is the timeline? Yes, exactly. I don't know where the study's at that we're looking for timeline-wise.
Right.
Is there a timeline on that study?
No, I don't think there's a deadline
It's in
for
progress.
completion, but we'll talk to John Grilling, the CED, find out the timeline, report back to you. Certainly keep Ridge informed.
There's a variety of concerns raised here with truck traffic, flooding, wells, the density, the corridor plan. If the 355 corridor plan needs to be revised, if it's 3 years old, maybe that needs to be taken under consideration. But the thing is, what we have right now is what we really need to abide by and honor.
You know, one thing you gotta realize, a lot of these trucks, the truck traffic we're seeing in downtown and 159th Street are not from the warehouses. They're coming from Crest Hill, Romeoville, UPS, FedEx. They're taking the direct route to 355. But we're getting caught up in the traffic, and then the new developers we're coming to are getting caught up in that mess that we're looking at.
And that's why you gotta coordinate the two.
Exactly. want to see something interesting, take a ride down to Elwood one day and just watch it.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Good luck with that.
And I assume everyone saw the Herald News today, there's 2,400 acres of new warehousing proposed for Elwood. So it's worth taking a look at the article.
Okay, is there any further business?
Pam, we have a mandatory planning commission city council meeting on when, June 28th?
28th?
It's the 28th, I don't necessarily know the mandatory.
That's what we have to tell Brent. We have to tell Brent. it's mandatory.
But yes, you mean you're strongly encouraged to attend, so that it's going to also be with the H&A Commission, Heritage and Architecture. Tesca Associates will be making, it's kind of like a planning and zoning 101 kind of thing, and they're going to talk, they'll be giving us a copy of the agenda shortly for us to go over, but they'll be talking about a variety of topics.
Okay, if there's no further business,
Motion adjourned?
Second.
motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries.